Sit down. I already poured your drink. Back so soon? Must be a good one. You're smiling? That's unusual. You don't smile unless the ending was worth the wait. Patience is a currency most people can't afford, but you've always appreciated the ones who can. Go ahead, I'm listening.
I've worked a lot of cases over the years: cheating spouses, insurance fraud, corporate theft, you name it. I've pulled the thread on it. Most cases, people want fast results, instant justice. They want me to find the proof by Friday so they can file by Monday. But every once in a while, I come across someone who understands that real justice doesn't run on a deadline. Someone who can sit with anger for years, not letting it consume them, but letting it sharpen. This case, client named Daniel, and what he did to the man who lied to him is the most patient, elegant act of revenge I've ever witnessed. Daniel came to me about 3 years into his plan. But I need to start at the beginning so you understand the kind of man we're dealing with. Daniel was a quiet guy, early 30s, single, worked in IT for a mid-sized company, not flashy, not wealthy, just steady. The kind of guy who packs his own lunch and drives a car until the engine gives out. And for 10 years, a full decade, he saved every spare dollar for a house. 10 years, think about that. While his friends were buying new cars, going on vacations, upgrading their apartments, Daniel was stacking money in a savings account with the discipline of a monk. He had a number in his head, and he wasn't going to stop until he hit it. He wanted a home. Not an investment property, not a flip, a home. Somewhere permanent, somewhere that was entirely his. Now, being single on a mortgage meant compromises. Where Daniel lived, the affordable properties on shared blocks usually came with what's called a strata title, a community ownership structure, shared insurance, communal funds, bylaws telling you what color you can paint your fence. For some people, that's fine. For Daniel, who'd spent 10 years earning the right to live exactly the way he wanted, it was a deal breaker. So he was patient. He searched for months until he found the perfect property. Shared block, but freehold title. His own piece of dirt. No committee, no bylaws, no body corporate breathing down his neck. Just one shared obligation, splitting the public liability insurance for a common walkway with the neighboring property owner. The real estate agent handling the sale was a guy named Craig Morrison, local guy. Well known in the area, had a flashy office on the main street, drove a new SUV, sponsored the local rugby team. The kind of agent who calls everyone mate and shakes your hand a little too hard. Daniel knew of him through friends of friends, 3 degrees of separation, the way it works in small communities. Daniel asked Craig directly, "This is freehold, correct? Not strata." Craig confirmed, in person, in emails, in the listing. Every piece of marketing material said freehold. Daniel's lawyer did the conveyancing, reviewed the title, everything looked clean. Settlement went through. Daniel moved in. 10 years of sacrifice, and he finally had his home. He told me he didn't even unpack for the first 2 days. Just sat in his empty living room with a beer, looking at the walls, thinking, this is mine. He spent the first few months exactly the way you'd expect. Painting rooms, setting up a garden, learning which floorboards creaked. Getting to know the rhythm of the place, when the sunlight hit the kitchen, when the birds went quiet at dusk. He was happy, genuinely deeply happy. I could tell from the way he talked about it, even years later. His voice changed when he described those first months. And then 5 months after settlement, someone knocked on his door. It was the owner of the neighboring property, a landlord, not a resident. Friendly enough, wanted to discuss the insurance arrangement, standard stuff. Daniel asked for a copy of the policy so he could keep his records straight. The document arrived by email 2 days later. Daniel opened it, scrolled to the policy type, and his stomach dropped. Strata insurance, not freehold. Strata. He called his lawyer immediately. His lawyer pulled the records, re-examined the title, and confirmed what Daniel already feared. The property was registered as a strata title. It had always been a strata title. The lawyer was mortified. He'd missed it during conveyancing, and to his credit, he owned that mistake and made things right on his end. But the damage was done. Daniel's dream home, the one he'd specifically, deliberately, painstakingly chosen because it wasn't strata, was exactly what he'd spent 10 years trying to avoid.
10 years of patience to buy it. He was about to need even more.
Daniel arranged a meeting with Craig Morrison at his office. He brought everything: printed emails where Craig explicitly confirmed freehold status, screenshots of the online listing, the marketing brochure, the correspondence between Craig and Daniel's lawyer where freehold was discussed and confirmed. He laid it all on the table, literally, and said, "This property was sold to me as freehold. It's strata. Every communication from your office said freehold. I need you to make this right." Craig looked at the documents, looked at Daniel, and said, "I don't see the issue here, mate." That's a direct quote. Daniel remembered it word for word, and I believe him because it's the kind of sentence that brands itself into your memory. The evidence was sitting right there in black and white, Craig's own words, Craig's own emails, and he looked Daniel in the eye and denied it. No apology, no acknowledgement, no offer to discuss a resolution, just a flat refusal to accept any fault. Now, in my line of work, you meet liars every day. Most of them are at least creative about it. They'll spin a story, redirect, offer a plausible alternative explanation. Craig didn't even bother. He just refused reality. And that told Daniel everything he needed to know about the kind of person he was dealing with. Daniel didn't yell, didn't threaten. He gathered his documents and left. He tried the proper channels, went through formal mediation, again brought all the evidence. The mediator was clearly on Daniel's side, told him afterward, off the record, that he had a strong legal case and should pursue it. But Craig's response in mediation was just as dismissive. His final offer was $1,000 to make Daniel go away. Daniel's property was worth hundreds of thousands. The difference between freehold and strata on a property like that, in terms of value, in terms of freedom, in terms of everything Daniel had spent a decade saving for, was significant. And Craig offered him $1,000 like he was settling a bar tab. Daniel had every right to sue. The mediator encouraged it. His lawyer said the case was solid. But Daniel was dealing with health issues at the time, nothing life-threatening, but enough that the idea of a protracted legal battle felt like more than he could carry. He made the calculated decision to walk away from the courts. But walking away from the courts is not the same as walking away. I remember the exact moment Daniel told me about his decision. He was sitting right across from me, and he said, very calmly, very quietly, "I decided I wasn't going to sue him. I was going to do something better." And when a quiet man says something like that with a smile, you pay attention. Daniel went home and opened his laptop. He started with Craig Morrison's Facebook page. Not hard to find. The man used it to market his real estate business, posted every listing, every open house, every sold banner. And because Craig was the kind of guy who had no concept of privacy settings, his personal life was right there too. Photos from family barbecues, holiday snaps, and this was the key, a full album from a trip he'd taken with his friends about a month before Daniel's purchase settled. A boys on tour trip to Southeast Asia, Thailand specifically. The photos were exactly what you'd expect. Group shots at bars, stupid hats, thumbs up at temples, sunburns and singlets. Daniel screenshotted everything. Then he looked up Craig's home address through a public business registration search. Took about 5 minutes, and then Daniel created Elle. Elle didn't exist, she never had. She was a fiction, a ghost, a name on a card. But she was about to become the most important woman in Craig Morrison's life. On the 1-year anniversary of the property sale, the exact date, a bouquet of flowers arrived at Craig Morrison's home. Attached was a small card. "Dear Craig, remembering you on this, our special day. She has your eyes. Love, Elle." That's it. That was year 1. Year 2, same date, different flowers, same tone. "Dear Craig, another year. She's getting so big. I think of you every time she smiles. Love, Elle." Year 3, Dear Craig, on this our special day, she asked about you for the first time today. I didn't know what to say. Love, L. Every year, same date, always flowers, always a card, always signed Love, L. Always a subtle reference to a child, their child. A daughter with Craig's eyes who was growing up somewhere far away. And between the anniversaries, Daniel arranged for postcards and letters to be sent from Thailand, the country Craig had visited on his boys' trip. Always handwritten, always signed Love, L. Sometimes just a few words. Missing you, wish you were here, she drew this for you. Daniel told me he spent about $40 a year on the whole operation. Flowers aren't expensive when you order the modest arrangements. International postcards cost almost nothing. The most expensive part was the international letter forwarding. He used a mail service that would post letters from overseas on his behalf. $40 a year. For 6 years, $240 total. I've seen clients spend six figures on lawyers and walk away with nothing. Daniel spent the price of a nice dinner and dismantled a man's entire life. Now, when Daniel first told me about this, I have to admit I wasn't sure it would work. It was clever, absolutely, but it relied on so many things going right. Craig's wife had to find the flowers. She had to read the cards. She had to care. She had to connect the dots. But Daniel understood something that most people don't. He understood that he didn't need the flowers to prove anything. He just needed them to plant a seed. Suspicion is a vine. Once it takes root, it grows on its own. All he had to do was water it. Once a year, same day, every year. And for 6 years, that's exactly what he did.
$240. Some of the most expensive revenge I've ever heard of cost millions. This one cost less than a pair of shoes.
About 3 years ago, 6 years into Daniel's campaign, the flowers did what flowers do. They bloomed. Craig Morrison's wife had been finding these deliveries since year one. And from what I was able to piece together through mutual contacts in the area, this is a small community, remember, everyone knows everyone. She'd confronted Craig early on, year one, maybe year two. He denied everything, laughed it off, told her it was a prank, a mix-up, a wrong address. And she wanted to believe him. People always do when the alternative is that your husband fathered a child with a woman named Elle in Thailand. You choose the version of reality where it's a joke. But the flowers kept coming, same day, every single year. And the cards kept referencing a child who was growing up, a little girl who was asking about her father. Here's where karma, real karma, not the internet kind, enters the story. What Daniel didn't know when he started this, what nobody outside Craig's marriage knew, was that about a year before Daniel bought his property, Craig had gone on a similar trip overseas, and he'd come back with a souvenir he didn't want, a sexually transmitted infection. He gave it to his wife, she got tested, confronted him, and he somehow, I still don't understand how, convinced her it wasn't from him, told her she must have picked it up from a gym towel or a public bathroom or some nonsense, and she accepted it. She let it go because the alternative was too painful. But she never fully let it go. Not really. That kind of doubt doesn't disappear, it just goes dormant. It waits. So when the flowers kept arriving, year after year, always on the same date, always referencing a trip overseas, always mentioning a child, his wife did what any person carrying 6 years of dormant suspicion would do. She did the math, the date on the flowers, the timing of Craig's boys' trip, the postcards from Thailand, the STD he'd brought home, the child Elle kept mentioning, a child who would be about the right age if conceived during that trip. She put 2 and 2 together, and this time she got 4. Craig broke. Under the weight of the evidence, the real evidence of his actual infidelity, plus 6 years of phantom evidence from a woman who didn't exist, he admitted he'd cheated on her during that trip. He probably thought admitting the affair would make the Elle situation go away, that he could explain the flowers as harassment from a fling. But it was too late, 6 years too late. His wife filed for divorce, and in that divorce, Craig Morrison lost his family home. He lost half his retirement savings. His wife's lawyer was apparently very, very good, and Craig's reputation in the community was already crumbling. When people found out why the marriage ended, the Whisper Network did the rest. In a small town, a real estate agent's entire business is built on trust. And once the word got out that Craig Morrison was the kind of man who cheated on his wife overseas and possibly fathered a child he'd been hiding for years, whether that part was true or not didn't matter anymore. The phone stopped ringing. He lost his real estate license within a year. Not revoked, he just couldn't afford to keep it. No listings, no sales, no income. The man who'd looked Daniel in the eye and said, "I don't see the issue here, mate," was now sitting in a rental apartment, divorced, broke, and unemployable. Daniel told me the last part of the story about 3 weeks before he came to see me that final time. He'd heard through the grapevine, friends of friends, the usual small-town telegraph, that Craig's new girlfriend had sent an email to someone complaining. Apparently, Craig was refusing to marry her because, in his words, his ex-wife had cleaned him out. The girlfriend blamed Daniel's flowers, called it theft, said Daniel had stolen Craig's money by destroying his marriage. She said she shouldn't have to sign a prenup because Craig's ex was the real criminal. Daniel told me he didn't respond, didn't need to. The irony was enough, because here's what nobody in Craig's circle ever figured out. Elle wasn't real. There was no daughter. There were no love letters from a secret family in Thailand. It was a man with a printer, a flower delivery service, and an international mail forwarding account. $240 and a memory that wouldn't quit. But, and this is the part that still gets me, the affair was real. Craig really did cheat on his wife. He really did bring home an STD. He really did lie about it. Daniel's flowers didn't create the fracture. They just made sure the fracture couldn't heal. Daniel didn't invent Craig's sins. He just made sure Craig's wife couldn't forget them. When I asked Daniel if he felt guilty, he paused, thought about it, really thought about it, and he said, "Sometimes, late at night, when it's quiet, I wonder if I went too far." Then he took a sip of his drink and said, "But then I remember sitting across from him in that office, watching him look at his own emails and tell me he didn't see the problem, and the guilt goes away." Daniel still lives in that house, still strata title, still has to deal with the bylaws and the body corporate fees and everything he never wanted, but it's his home. He made peace with it. And Craig Morrison, last I heard, he's working as a property manager for someone else's agency in another town. Different name on the door, different city. Starting over the way people start over when everything they built turns out to have been sitting on a lie. Kind of poetic when you think about it. A real estate agent who sold a property on false terms, brought down by a man who sold his wife a story on false terms.
Humans fascinate me. They'll forgive almost anything if the apology comes fast enough. A mistake acknowledged, a wrong made right, most people can live with that. But refuse to apologize, deny what's right in front of you, that's when patience stops being a virtue and starts being a weapon. Tell me something, if someone wronged you and refused to admit it, how long would you wait? A year? 5? Or would you just keep sending flowers? Same time next week? I'll be here. I always am.